And here we go. Although I think the cameras are frozen. There we go. They're alive now. Briefly, the camera was frozen on my recording thing. I am here with Robbie Scott. I think I'm pointing at him. Yes, I am. My hand is going the right way. And Robbie Scott is a MMA fighter. Fights out of the UK as well as the Middle East, Kuwait. And I've done some fight breakdowns for him before. You may remember him as Kaz from MMA YouTube. Did predictions. I made a guest appearance on his YouTube channel as he flexes.
You were a floating head.
I was a floating head. And,
I forgot about that.
And how you doing, my man?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Can't complain too much about life in general. What about yourself?
Doing good. The world is in a bit of a handbasket right now, but life is fine. Life is good, and so you're a little bit more familiar, of course, with some of these fighters than I am because you're British, and a large portion of this card was London or Liverpool-based fighters. I think that was all of them.
Bit of Manchester in there as well. Bit of Manchester thrown in as well.
Yeah. So you'll probably have a little bit more heated takes for this one. I found this card really, really interesting. Number one, the fights top to bottom were very, very good. So that, is part one. But part two is I also found that a lot of fighters, and this doesn't usually happen. Normally when we get a fight night card particularly, it's like, all right, I expected that to happen. Okay, that was a bit random. But I'm very seldom do I have a card where there's like a half dozen fighters who my opinion of where they're going to end up and what their ceiling is and what their skills are fundamentally changes over the course of a card. It's very rare for that to happen. And that happened with a couple of people on this card. And let's just dive into it, I guess.
Go ahead. Get the ball rolling, kid.
All right. Hang on. We have a slight technical problem.
So we're starting off in the heavyweight division with... No, I'm going. You just go.
Okay, here we go. So what happened is the cameras were freezing on my OBS when I was looking at Chrome. So I needed to move Chrome to the other monitor. Anyways, we started off with Mokaya versus Cody Durden. Cody Durden, of course, was famous for his, let's call it, politically insensitive Twitter. And this one ended pretty quickly. Guillotine choke, flying knee, into a slam, into a guillotine choke. Very exciting. I don't know if we learned anything about either fighter particularly, because we've seen Durden get choked out before, so that's not new. And Mokaya fought more or less like what little I've seen of him, because he fights in Brave CF, and that's hard to get your hands on over here in terms of footage. My concern with Mokaya still going forward is the same as it was before, is that it looks like he thinks he's more physically dominant than he is. And we've all been there in the gym. We've squared off against somebody who were like, I could totally do this and this person, and then you just can't. And that does feel like Mokaya will at some point hit that, because what little I've seen of him is very much, all right, no one can clinch with me. I will overpower everybody. And I don't think anyone can really have that attitude at flyweight without at some point hitting a rude awakening. But that's
well,
all.
Where I would elaborate there, I have some deeper insight into this fight for two reasons. Number one, Muhammad Mokaya made his name over here because he's in Bahrain, or Bahrain, they say in Arabic, which is literally where I've just been this weekend. It's about a 30-minute flight from where I live now. So I've been familiar with this kid because Brave was founded in Bahrain. That's point one. Point two, he now lives in Manchester, and he is a member and a training partner of mine.
Oh,
I have rolled with this dude over the summer and a little bit in November and December. I didn't roll with him the last time I was in the UK, just gone. And I also, like a lot of people, have heard the hype about this Russian Dagestani guy who lives in Manchester but trains in Bahrain, who has not lost a fight his entire life, and he's now at pro, and he's also still undefeated after 23-0 at amateur. So I was like, let's see if the hype's real. And I can tell you, dude, as a flyweight, competing against a featherweight, me,
and a pretty big featherweight,
he's every bit as good as he looks.
All right.
For one thing that shocked me, and I expected Cody Durden to suspect he was going to have a wrestling advantage, and I know Mokaya can wrestle, dude. He's a Dagestani. There's 7 or 8 Dagestanis in that gym in Manchester, most of which I've been with at least. And then he came out from the opening bell and started hitting this like drop feint thing that a lot of strikers do, and I was like, Makayev knows how to strike now. When I rolled with him, or when I sparred with him, he wasn't really much of a striker, and then in 30 seconds, he hit a flying knee. I was like, okay, flyweight's in trouble. And then it ended how it ended. So I had a bit of extra insight going into that one, having known about him for a few years, being in the Middle East, and having trained with him in Manchester. He's every bit as good as he looks, and now he can strike. So flyweight's in trouble. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about it because flyweight is, a division that's very thin, could use new blood. I'm excited whenever any good flyweight comes up. So I'm hoping for big things. Not really sure who I'd match him up with next, just because flyweight being what it is, there's not really a lot of middle ground in the division. There's not really a guy who really sings out for a matchup with him, but I'm definitely impressed with it. Twitter has suggested he'll be fighting on UFC 276 on International Fight Week. So there we go.
Interesting. That's in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes, it is.
I might go. That's also very close to me, so we'll see.
Elise Reed versus Corey McKenna. This was the first fight I got wrong on the night. I picked McKenna to win because I really, really dismissed Elise Reed. And I think this is the first fighter that changed my opinion of them. I still don't know that Elise Reed has a lot of upside, that she's going to be a champion or a contender or anything like that. But she went from being someone who I thought really didn't belong in the UFC, just didn't have the physical capabilities, to showing good sense of timing, good counters, good accuracy, a little bit more pop than I expected her to have. And obviously, I hadn't really thought of this because she debuted at 125. Now she's at 115. Quite tall for the division. So that will also probably pay dividends. For McKenna, she's young. She can advance off this and learn, but I do think she needs to fundamentally shift her perception of what she is, because she seems to think that she's a boxer. And this is not a dig on her boxing talent necessarily, which I do have issues with. But she's 5'3", and at 5'3", even at 115, your game has to go beyond boxing if you're going to compete. You need to be taller to make that work. And it's not that she can't do other things, but like, she didn't go for takedowns until very late in the first round, very late in the second round, and then into the third round. And it's like, one, you're training with Team Alpha Male, so where's the wrestling? And two, you need to realize that your boxing sets up your wrestling, not the opposite way around.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, I didn't have much of an insight on it because here's where I'm going to get either you or me cancelled. I'm not sure, but I don't follow women's MMA too much. I've got to tell you the truth. I don't.
It's fair. I've always said this. It's to me, it's not a gender thing. Like, but
no.
I mean, the talent is not there yet, and it makes sense. They started women's MMA became serious several decades after men's MMA. It would make sense that they are behind. And the other thing is, I think some of the coaching has to go different because there are differences in the female body structure, which I learned in extenuation, trying to teach girls how to throw footballs in college and middle school and stuff, and it never really working. And it's like, and it wasn't that there was no arm strength or whatever. It's that they would try to duplicate my throwing motion or someone else's throwing motion, and it would not work. Their shoulder would go kind of more sidearm. And eventually, courtesy of my sister, we figured out how to get her to throw a reasonable pass 20 yards, but it isn't using the same fundamental mechanics of a man's throw. So there are differences, and I think MMA will probably have to learn that somewhat because, for example, very few of the ladies have particularly effective ground and pound. That's definitely a bit of a problem. And that being said, I do think women's MMA will grow faster than men's because in almost every other sport, there is a significant gender pay gap. WNBA, NBA, etc., whatever. The MMA is one of the few sports where it seems like women are actually treated more or less equally from a pay structure. So I think it serves to reason that women's MMA will actually attract some very good athletes, and we will, over time, see them catch up and become more interesting. But between the fact that almost all the women's divisions have dominant champions, or in the case of strawweight, which doesn't have a dominant champion, but has like a dominant like foursome at the top that like the rest of the division just can't compete with, there is a certain less intrigue to it. And also it's harder to find their fights. So, that's another thing. Jack Shore, Timur Valiev. This was another one. I picked Shore to win, and the fight went more or less how I thought it would, but Shore impressed me a little bit more because I think there's more physicality to his game than I had previously given him credit for.
I noticed that on your prediction video too. Yeah, I noticed that you, not underestimated him, but like you spoke about him like he's less of an athlete than what he shows because he physically he doesn't look like a bodybuilder, or like your typical athlete. But he's deceivingly strong. He's got real deep-seated grappler strength, so it didn't really shock me. But
watching him be able to outpower both in the clinch and at range Valiev, who is a very strong fighter.
He is.
That definitely did answer some of the... It hypes me up more for Jack Shore. And I was pretty hyped up to begin with. Then we had Paul Craig, Nikita Krylov. I don't remember which I predicted on my video, but I went back and forth on this fight several times with...
You said Craig.
I said Craig, okay.
You did. Your final decision was Craig.
Because by fight time, I was picking Craig, but I forgot whether I had picked him on the video.
You're making me doubt it now. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's just how he typically wins. He had like one or two. I think he TKO'd Shogun when their rematch, and there was one little short dude that he kind of like Muay Thai kneed against the fence and TKO'd with punches. But other than that, he's a little bit like. Do you remember a guy? Yeah, of course you'll remember, but you remember Ian Entwistle?
Yes.
And he was a very good striker, especially in the boxing. He's got powerful kicks, especially his low kicks, and his wrestling's pretty decent. But the minute he got to the UFC, it was like I've got to dive on a heel hook, and I've seen that dude on the lower level before. And he got to the UFC, and it was just like if I don't get the heel hook, I'm fucked. I still don't know why he did it because the dude lives and trains in Thailand with a lot of good strikers and fighters. So why he got to the UFC and thought like I'm going to dive for leg locks all the time and get TKO'd? It worked once and failed twice from what I remember. So I kind of feel like Craig's a little bit like that, but because the talent at light heavyweight is thinner than at lightweight, he's getting away with it more, even against guys like Ankalaev and people like that. So it will work a little bit.
Ankalaev, I would argue, he didn't really get away with it. I mean, he did get the win, obviously, with the... I can't remember if it was an armbar or triangle choke. But with 1 second left on the clock.
Triangle at 4 minutes 59. Yeah. Can you imagine, of round 3?
But if you have to get your ass kicked for over 14 and a half minutes to get the submission, I'm not sure if you got away with it or if you just fluked out.
Pretty much.
Funny story. I have a friend... So, sort of a friend of a friend deal. Friend has a friend named Craig Entwistle. And I was talking about him the other day, and he very much reminds me of Ian Entwistle during his UFC run, because he's always like, because he had me make a fighter for him in the MMA simulator. And so what you're going to do here is this guy pulls guard and throws up triangle chokes and arm bars. He's basically like a hybrid of Paul Sass and Ian Entwistle. And I'm like... Okay, he's like, his name is Craig Entwistle. I'm like, that's funny. And he's like,
that is funny.
He's like, I train with him all the time. He's the type of guy I should out grapple every single goddamn time, but he somehow gets me to triangle choke.
Those long limbs, dude. Maybe it's this guy's called Paul as well. Like
maybe
Paul Craig, but he does have. I mean, that one he had with I'm forgetting his name now. You'll remember it. The last fight he had, and the guy's arm was flopping
Jamal
about
Hill.
like a fish. Jamal Hill, that was it. Oh man, when his arm was flapping about like a fish. But I do think, and I'm sure you're going to say the same thing as well. Eventually, that game plan is going to run out, and it has run out a few times because it's not like he hasn't lost in the UFC. He has. So eventually, when he starts climbing up to, let me just throw a random name out there, maybe. I mean, I don't think
it might end.
He'd never get Glover in that. He'd never get Glover in that. Glover's way too smart, and he's a black belt. He'd never get. I mean, maybe he could get Blachowicz in that. I don't know.
I think Blachowicz would be smart enough to avoid the ground with him, though, and just control it. With
but he can be a bit retarded on the floor. But it worked against Adesanya because there was a 20-pound weight difference between them. Probably 30 after the weight cut. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I'll support it anyway because he's. I do appreciate the art of jiu-jitsu on the floor, especially from the back, because a lot of people are under that influence now. But they're of the mindset that closed guard is dead, and it's nice to see someone disprove that. But eventually, he's going to punch his ticket eventually, because not everyone is going to go. And people have not fallen for that. Like, he got knocked out twice in a row, I think. So he is beatable, but right now it's working for him. So I'm interested. I actually am interested in who he called out, the Anthony Smith fight. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun, yeah. Anthony Smith is the type of guy who would possibly grapple with him, could also possibly knock him out. So that's a fascinating fight.
And he's a black belt, so
I will say the only interesting thing about this fight is that this kind of, again, and this is not a unique thought to me, other people have this thought, fighters will inevitably fight to what their preconceived win basis is, and it's not really based on the opponent a lot of the time, because
you always go back to what you know when you're under pressure. I know that as being a fighter myself. I know that, believe me.
Absolutely. Oh no, I did the same thing. I remember one of my very, very, very few pro MMA fights. We're talking over a decade ago now. I feel old. I fought a guy. He was a jiu-jitsu black belt. As far as I could ascertain, he had nothing else. He was shorter than me, which was very rare for me because I'm a 5'11" light heavyweight, maybe middleweight. And I went out there. We've been practicing the boxing all week. We're gonna establish the jab. We're gonna be a new Mike, new me. I'm ready for it. First thing I do, I throw a jab and dive for a double leg. And I survived a little while, but like he did get me in the end, and my coaches were not happy with me. It happens. It happens. And in Krylov's case, his winning condition is control position to be a wrestler, basically. Mostly because I think he got out wrestled so much in his early career that he became convinced that was the way to stop that. And he's not wrong necessarily, but against Paul Craig, it was completely the wrong idea.
No.
Sergey Pavlovic versus Shamil Rahimov. I have nothing really to say about this fight.
Before you go on, I think we both agree that I know you said the girl fight on the main card would be the P break, or that might have been Byron. Everyone on Twitter, I didn't say it, but I agreed, said if you're going to go take a P break, do it now, UK. And
the only reason
that's what I did. That's what I did.
I don't disagree. The only reason I wouldn't have used this as a P break is just because I was so certain it would end in the first round, and it did. It was too quick for the P break.
Well, man, it depends how long it takes you to
true.
pee.
Obviously.
Yeah. I haven't. I saw
in fairness,
how it ended. I didn't see the entire. How long did it last? I've got to look at it.
4 minutes. 3.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I didn't see it. I'll be honest. I didn't see it.
You didn't miss anything unless you really don't rate Pavlovic as a power striker, and I do. I think he's a fairly complete fighter. I think people soured on him when he lost to Overeem, and it's Overeem. Of course he lost to him. Welcome to the UFC. Here's Alistair Overeem.
Yeah. Overeem's still chucking on.
And I'm not saying he's going to be like a champion or whatever, but I do think Pavlovic has a lot of potential. Heavyweight is thin. He'll advance. Somewhat similar to Tom Aspinall, who we're going to talk about later, although not as good as Aspinall. But a similar potential path. And I did tell my friend Javier, who really needed to go get food, that this was the point to do it. You got to see Craig versus Krylov, and then you go for food. So I'm not disagreeing with the piss break. Makwan Amirkhani, Mike Grundy. I don't have a lot to say about this fight either. I was very excited about Makwan Amirkhani when he came into the OC, but his inability to manage his gas tank, because I refuse to believe he's actually in terrible shape, is just an incredible limiting factor that I'm not necessarily going to pick. But man does have a very, 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 very nasty front headlock game, and Mike Grundy went right into it.
And again, I have some extra insight on this because he just he did go on a 3-fight skid, but he looked bad, kind of, maybe not the first round in his last fight against Lerone Murphy, but again, Lerone Murphy is one of my training partners.
Oh, Murphy's the real deal.
He is, dude. He's even better in the gym, dude. He's not even fought as good as he trains. Lerone Murphy. He's my pick for if not a champion, then a title contender within the next year or two. He is. People don't realize how good that dude is, and he's effortless in how he picks things up and learns things and adapts his game. And he's a stance switcher. He's a power puncher. He's a good wrestler defensively and offensively. So when they matched that up, and I was like, if he's gonna make some noise in the featherweight division on the MMA scene, he's got to do it with this one. And when it was Amirkhani, I was like, but he could get wrestle fucked maybe. And then when he switched his stance twice in a row and threw the knee up the middle, I was like, that's what I've been seeing in the gym. So as much as Amirkhani looked bad for that knockout, I realized and understood who he was fighting. So when they put Mike Grundy against him, who is considerably smaller than Lerone, less naturally athletically gifted than Lerone, and just hasn't had the same success, and albeit he's been fighting good guys, but I actually think he's a bit undersized for featherweight as well. I think if he was to shave down a bit and try bantamweight, it would be better for him. And I also think he's not a very natural striker. Like his boxing is a little bit stiff with his elbows. So and I like it. You know, he's a great Manchester guy. So I want to see him do well. And according to Darren Till and everything, he's just a grinder. All he does is just dedicate his life to MMA. But when they put him against Amirkhani, I was like, I didn't have a good feeling about it, to be honest. So I think a lot of people overlooked Amirkhani because of what Lerone Murphy did to him, but then they don't realise how good Lerone Murphy is. So I wasn't shocked by this result at all, but it was very sad because Grundy apparently is a really, really nice dude.
His terminally ill father was also in the crowd.
Yeah, dude.
I was really hoping for Grundy, and also, I think that this win is actually kind of bad for Amirkhani because he really needs to be convinced that he needs to train his training situation really badly. It's one of those.
But he could get a resurgence. You don't know. He looked really good against Lerone in the first round, like very, very, very pressure heavy. But yeah, as soon as Lerone started throwing his stance switches and feints out, and I was like, oh shit, he does that in the gym. Yeah, this is a problem.
He's a little bit older than I thought he was. He's 33.
Yeah. Well, he's been in the UFC like 10 years? So.
I don't want to say 10 years, but it's been a while since he.
At least eight, surely.
Let's see here.
Surely at least 8.
Debuted against Andy Ogle 2015, so 7 years.
Feels longer than that.
7 years and a month.
Yeah, 7 years. Yeah. So he's been there a while, like.
But yeah, I mean, and again, Amirkhani is very, very good. I mean, split decision with Arnold Allen, very impressive. We're gonna get to Arnold Allen later. He gave a good accounting of himself against Shane Burgos as well, who's proving to be a very, very good fighter. Went to decision with Edson Barboza. The one that really has me like not super high on Amirkhani is that he lost to Ken Wella Kirk fairly one-sidedly, and then we watched Damon Jackson kind of just melt Ken Wella Kirk. So that does still worry me in terms of.
Could have been a bad night at the office.
Could be. Everybody has a bad night.
Oh yeah, I just had one, so I know.
We got Ilya Taporia versus Jai Herbert. Herbert was lighting him up, had him hurt multiple times, and they got flatlined.
I came out of my seat, dude. I came right out of my seat, and once again. Man's got a little bit of extra insight. Yeah, Byron, I heard what you said. Rob's getting you into weird fighters. No, let me explain. So first of all, what I'll say is me and Ilia Topuria have the same manager under Jose Diaz, first round management. So I have a relation to him with that. And me and Jai Herbert have a mutual opponent in Joe Mccolgan. So when I was studying up for Joe Mccolgan, as you remember, I got
I watched
involved
the
on
Herbert
that.
fight.
Yeah, and Jai Herbert was that guy. And Joe Mccolgan is, albeit a great grappler, which I didn't realise, because he got me in a weird choke upside down.
I'll say, when I was breaking down that fight for you, Mccolgan didn't seem like much of a grappler. And then watching your fight, it's like, boom. I'm like, okay. Hidden talents.
Yeah. And I was upside down, dude. I was on his back trying to go for a Sulawov stretch, and he had an idea of going for a dive, which is very creative under pressure. And then, of course, what does he go and win the world title with at Cage Warriors? That same front das from a weird failed takedown attempt. So he's very good. But he is predominantly known as a striker. And the fact that Jai Herbert was able to do that against someone who's predominantly a striker with a very good chin, I thought, Jai Herbert's going to be amazing. As long as he's got a good takedown defense and grappling game, Jai Herbert is going to do some damage in the UFC, because we had a mutual opponent in Joe Mccolgan. And I know we sometimes laugh at the term glass cannon, but he was, and I really like Francisco Trinaldo. I really like Maser Nduba. I've always liked him. But again, for 2.5 rounds, Jai Herbert made him look like a heavy bag. And then out of nowhere, an overhand left, and then infamously Dan Hardy jumps up and goes, "Stop the fight!" like that, you know. Mm-hmm. And obviously he's known for that. He's known for that knockout now. But then he looks really good in his. I know he lost another one after that. And then he looks really good in his last fight against someone who's fairly decent. And then he looks really good against Ilia Topuria, who is incredible but is a natural featherweight. And then out of nowhere, 1-2 body shot right hook, and Herbert's asleep again. I was like, I came right out of my seat, dude. Like, no exaggeration. I came right out of my seat when I saw that happen. Because, again, I want to see a Brit do well, but also me and Ilya are under the same management. We had literally the same manager who organised all our fights. So I also like seeing that, because it grows, my manager's stock as well, because he's been behind me for the last few years, a couple of years now. So it was, bittersweet to watch. I'd like to see Ilya do that to anyone. But the less Brits he has to do that to on the way up, the better. And not at lightweight as well. You crazy Georgian. What are you doing?
5'7" at lightweight. It's too short. It's too short.
And I know I have insight. I don't actually know why they put him up there. I still don't. I asked my manager, and he kind of like gave me a brush away answer, because they were in London at the time. And I just went, I just saw this at lightweight, and he was like, "Oh yeah, talk to you later." I never actually found out the reason why he moved up to lightweight. If I find out, I'll tell you.
They said he had a hard time making 145. I don't know.
I mean, he's smaller than me, dude, and I don't like making it, but I can make it. So he's younger than me. He's younger than me too.
It could be him not liking to make the weight, and that feeling of invincibility that comes with being 12-0. That I can go up a weight class and still do the job. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of lightweights he can still beat, but.
Yep.
At 145, I think Topuria is a title contender. Like, that's the kind of upside he has. At 155, just too short.
He would, and he'd never beat a guy like Makhachev. Yeah. He's just not physically strong enough, in my opinion.
And I know someone will say, like, Michael Chandler is about the same height, but Chandler is thick.
Well, Chandler's, again, an inch taller. He's 5'8", from what I remember. 5'8". And he's just so explosive at closing the distance. I mean, and I know Dan Hooker will get to in a minute, as you know. But
and also, if we're being honest here, Chandler's UFC run has not been that great.
Yeah, but he also fought like a retard in his last couple of fights. Like he charged Charles Oliveira, and they both threw the exact same combination, but Oliveira decided to end it on the left hook, and Chandler was just looking at him. It was just strange, But and then in the last fight, I think he stopped caring about the result, and he was just looking to put on a show, which I know we all appreciated.
yes, we did.
Yes, that was wild.
Molly McCann versus Luana Carolina. This is another fight that changed a lot of
my right out of my seat. I also came right out of my seat because I did not expect that one to end a knockout.
It's not even that I didn't think it would end in knockout, because Carolina is very, very hittable. And Carolina is also fairly hard hitter, so if the knockout had gone the other way, it wouldn't have even surprised me. But I liked what I saw with McCann having a lot more oomph in her punches that I had not seen before. She hits much, much harder.
Especially after round one.
And that was the limitation for me in terms of where I saw Molly McCann going. Is that she felt like, and there is nothing wrong with this, but she felt like a mid-level action fighter. Just not enough physicality to get the finishes, but would put on exciting fights, would put on scraps, would be in the UFC for a really, really long time, but not as a needle mover within the division. And I'm not going to say she's a future champion. I've seen that bandied about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Valentina Shevchenko's division. Until she's gone, none of these girls are getting the belt. Let's be honest. But my thoughts on her being a legitimate contender, legitimate prospect, have gone much higher because we saw the power, we saw creativity, and I don't even mean the elbow that finished the fight. I mean, just in general, there was a change up to her game that was not there before. And I don't want to blow it up too much because Luana Carolina is not very good. Like she's a big fighter who has a decent counterpunching game, who gets away with a lot of bad technique through physicality. And there are much, much better fighters coming up. But Molly McCann did herself a lot of favors, at least in my eyes, in terms of stock of where she can go. The celebration was a bit much, the dancing with the fake belt, and someone on Twitter took issue to people being angry about that. They're like, Chael Sonnen did it. I'm like, okay, I think you will find most of the people that are not happy with Molly McCann doing it also weren't happy with Chael Sonnen doing it. I feel like if you liked Chael Sonnen doing it, you like Molly McCann doing it. That's what it comes down to.
Unless she's just trying to, amalgamate it into reality. I'm not really sure. But look, again, as I've previously stated, and I'm not proud of, I don't really follow women's MMA too closely. But with Molly McCann, I've been very familiar with her on the UK circuit for a long, long time because she is one of our own, very close to where I'm from. I didn't realize she was that young because Paddy always calls her like the big sister, and I know she's been fighting for a long time, and she's younger than me. Like she's still I think she's still only in her 20s. So like the fact that she's having a resurgence now after a shaky.
She's 31. 31.
Oh no, so we're the same age then. Okay, cool. But the fact that she's having this resurgence now is really cool to see. And after that, I thought it was going to be gone in the first round. The way that her opponent started wobbling after a weird right hand kind of snuck over the guard. But then in the second, I think it was actually the beginning of the third round, the girl started smiling at her and started bringing her elbow and knee up like that. And I was like, oh, this could be interesting. I've seen this before. I've seen this happen in fights. I like when someone gets random confidence out of nowhere, and it usually works in my favour. And then, although she was doing that, like the bravado came up, the combinations went away. Like both of them just started throwing like ones. It was like low kick, boom, big right hand, boom. Something would miss, something would just scuff the knee, something would just scuff the elbow. And I was like, it's probably going to go to decision. And then out of nowhere, she kind of like stayed here for a while, and I was like, is she going to try a back kick? And instead of the kick, it was the elbow. And then of course, when she hit the deck like she'd been shot. Again, two fights in a row, I just came right out of my seat again. So yeah, it was nice to see, man, and to do that in kind of home turf in London as well was it was sweet to see, man. They need like we just alluded to before. They need female talent, bigger names who can put asses in chairs, and I mean that'll do it. A knockout like that will do it for a woman.
Yeah, no, I mean, despite the cringe factor, which Byron. I will blow up his spot here. Was not a fan. It was a very bad. Not a fan. But I think she did herself a immeasurable good. She had an exciting fight. She got the win. Yes, it's not over the greatest opponent in the world, but it's still a solid win in that division. Got some FaceTime with Dana afterwards. Got copious amounts of free Howler Head whiskey.
Oh yeah.
And I think things are looking up for Molly McCann. Again, I don't think she's going to be a champion. I think she's too old to outlast the reign of Valentina. But this is the first time in her career that I could see her fighting for a belt. Even if I think
unless Valentina does decide to challenge Nunes one more time at bantamweight, which I personally really want to see. That will be a female fight that I do tune in for.
I would be down with it. I think that's
Yeah,
a
me
ways
too.
away because I think Nunes has to go back and beat Pena, get the belt
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah.
but
But
yeah.
I want to see it because I'm with. I think I feel safe enough to say the majority. I think I'm with the majority when I say that Shevchenko won the second fight. Personally, in my opinion, I know it was a split decision and it was close, and a few people went the other way. I thought it was clearly 3 rounds for Shevchenko. A few people disagree with me, but that was one female fight I paid attention to, and I thought, I thought she was, I thought she won it. So I see a rematch clause being in there, and now seeing what Pena did to her with the pressure, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Shevchenko could. Because I think Shevchenko's got immensely better since that fight as well.
Yes.
I don't think Nunes has. I can't remember. There was one girl she fought who looked like. I don't want to be rude because it's a female, but she looked like a part-time, out-of-shape fighter. To be honest, I think it was in Abu Dhabi. Who did she defend the title against in Abu Dhabi?
We talking about Nunes or Shevchenko?
Nunes.
I will.
She went. She did it. She did a 5-round decision with a girl who, in my opinion, is not very good, like technically or physically or anything like that. Just can't remember her
name. You
name.
might be talking about Raquel Pennington.
No. I know Raquel Pennington. She's Tisha Torres' wife, isn't she?
Girlfriend, I believe, but yes.
Girlfriend. Okay. No, she defended a title in Abu Dhabi, and it went. Yeah, could be her. 5-round decision, right?
Yes.
Dreadful fight, absolutely dreadful fight.
Like no.
She had plenty of opportunities to finish her, and I feel like she did the Pat Barry Mirko Crocop thing and just kind of stood back to not make her look too bad because I think she quite liked her.
No,
so
yeah, Spencer is a super nice person, so I think that tends.
Yeah.
So that was at the Apex, so that might not be the one you're thinking.
No, it is that one then. One where there was no crowd. I remember it was one where there was no crowd.
Okay.
But anyway,
probably that one.
So I saw that and I was like, either she took it easy on her, or we're starting to see her prime deteriorate. And going into that Pennington fight, one friend of mine and my coach actually said Pennington's going to beat her to the punch for all 5 rounds. What we didn't expect was for her to beat her in 1 round. That was crazy. But so I think if Shevchenko is going to jump on her, it has to be now.
Yeah. No, this is Nunes is at an all-time low right now. But I think also at the same time, the fight would have less meaning for Shevchenko now because there is the loss. Although, I mean, okay, devil's advocate. She goes in, she beats Nunes. She sets up a fight with Pena. So, there you go.
Correct. And then Amanda gets a rematch or whatever. So, yeah.
Gunnar Nelson, Takeshi Sato. This went exactly like I thought it would, frankly. Sato is a very patient counter fighter. Very low volume, is going to let Gunnar Nelson have the fight Gunnar wants to have. On one hand, very frustrated that this was Gunnar's return fight just because it showed nothing. But at the other time, he's been off for, 2 years? So, 2-3 years? And getting him back in with a nice recovery fight is not a bad idea.
Yeah, the most predictable fight on the card, in my opinion, which is a shame. Because out of all the Japanese fighters in the UFC right now, I really like Takeshi Sato. I really like his style, but he's just been given some hot... Like, when he's on, he's really nice to watch, but he's got a very weird style which doesn't gel well with others, and you throw him against the best European grappler. The best grappler in Europe, hands down, who's only really looked average or less at the hands of Damian Maia, who's probably the best MMA grappler of all time, alongside Khabib and maybe Verdum. And so a weird fight to throw in, but I think if there was some bias in there towards Gunnar Nelson to make him look good in his return fight, that wouldn't shock me because that certainly felt like how it felt as I was watching it, And Takashi's not known for his ground game at all. I think he's got a bit of judo, nothing else.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it wasn't even the grappling for me. It was that if you're just going to let Gunnar sit out at range, Gunnar's fine with that. And Sato is going to do that to a certain degree.
Nothing else to add on that one.
Kind of like a Japanese Sam Alvey almost.
Oh, no, don't be rude.
No,
don't be rude.
Stylistically in the sense that there's a very simple key to defeating him. He's obviously not had the losses that Alvey has had. And also,
let's not even go into that, dude. Good God. 5-fight losing streak is still in the UFC. You know.
Paddy Pimblett, Kazula Vargas, Rodrigo Kazula Vargas. Vargas rocked him early and then made the incredibly poor decision to try to grapple with Paddy Pimblett. I almost forgive him for the initial follow-up into the grappling when he had him rocked, but then he went back in again, and I'm just like, it's going to be this kind of fight, eh?
Same thing that Krylov did. Krylov tried to enter the guard of Paul Craig, and he threw a backhand to go in, not an overhand, a backhand, and poor gamesmanship. And here's the thing with me, again, I might have lied when I said Gunnar Nelson was the most predictable win. Maybe it was Paddy Pimblett. I honestly think, call me rude, call me what you will, I actually think this guy, Vargas, is worse than his last opponent, Vendramini. I actually think Vargas is worse than Vendramini, personally. Personally, that's my opinion. So the fact that he judo tossed him into an RNC doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think Vendramini has a little bit more technical depth to him than Vargas does.
Yeah,
I think Vargas has more physicality than Vendramini does. So it's kind of I don't know if worse. It's not better. It's just different in terms of opponent type. And
but I don't think it proved anything.
No,
I don't think that's like his entire Cage Warriors career, dude. Someone hits him very, very hard, and he pulls out a submission. Except for his last fight, where he did actually knock the dude out. Although I think he did get a flying knee one time, Paddy. Me and you have known about Paddy Pimblett since he was an amateur, so I know me and you have got extensive knowledge on him, and me being a Brit even more so. He also, I don't know if he'd like me saying this. He does still have me on Twitter, I believe. Also used to do his own prediction videos before he was famous. Don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. I did not know that one.
He was Paddy, I'm calling you out, lad. Don't know if you'll ever see this, but I'm calling you out. Paddy Pimo 1 was his YouTube account, and he quickly removed that when he became a Cage Warriors champion. I remember that.
Which
he put all of his training videos.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, but he got most of his predictions right when he did them. So me and Brian and Tim used to talk to him. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think this fight proved anything personally.
And I want to say this. Everything I'm about to say has nothing to do with actually Paddy Pimblett himself. You promote yourself. You play the game. Whatever. I'm fine with it. 100%. But the Pimblett fan base is insufferable right now on Twitter. They really are. It's like,
don't even try and. If you don't understand the Scousers, dude, don't try and understand the Scousers. And I don't just mean their accent. I mean the mindset, how they're brought up. They are not like the rest of the UK, and they don't like being compared to the rest of the UK. They see themselves as their own entity. You'll never understand the humour unless you're from there or from around near there. You'll never understand the mindset unless you've been through what Scousers have been through, being kind of like sidelined in the UK. So they will stick by their own no matter what. Even if he was dog shit, he'd still a world beater.
Which is absolutely fine. I mean, I overrate Canadian fighters all the time. It happens, particularly ones that I've met and have kicked my ass.
Of course, of course.
But like people like, he's proven he's for real. Like, for real, what though? Like, it's a fight he was A, supposed to win. B, he won it more or less in the fashion that you would expect him to win it in. He didn't show anything new. Like
I'll tell you one thing, dude. They'll keep him the hell away from Ilya Topuria.
Yeah.
They won't put him anywhere near that guy if they're smart.
Yeah, no, and to be clear, I agree with Pimblett not wanting to fight Topuria because, I mean, the money is not right. Not even saying he would win or he would lose. The money is not right. But
he wouldn't win. He wouldn't
no,
win.
I don't think he would. But like, even if I thought he would win, I wouldn't take the fight. The money's not right. That being said, I'm just gonna say this. Don't start shit with another fighter and expect not to have fans demand you fight him. Like, just in general, don't do that. Like, it's a bad plan.
Well, it was like the Conor McGregor Uriah Faber thing. Like, Conor McGregor was cutting weight and got into a bit of a back and forth with Uriah Faber, and it ended up with Faber pinning him against the wall. And everyone was like, "Oh, look how weak Conor is." Uriah Faber just pinned him against the wall. Look how easy that'd be. And of course, that ended up in making the season of The Ultimate Fighter. It didn't result in a fight, but. Yeah, these things do happen sometimes behind the scenes.
Yeah. But, like, you got to be ready for, like, a portion of the fan base to, call you a coward when the fight doesn't happen and whatever. So, like, if I'm Paddy Pimblett, you've opened the doors for criticism. you're gonna have to deal with it.
And then Ilya called him out on the mic. Ilya called him out on the mic. So like,
and for Ilya,
he's on YouTube. He's on YouTube calling him a blonde bitch. So like, it's there now. You can't get rid of it. It's on the internet. It lives forever.
Okay. Then we had Arnold Allen, Dan Hooker. I picked Hooker in this fight because I thought the reach would insulate him too much, and that Allen's tendency to let you come to him as opposed to go to you would define the fight. Apparently Arnold Allen listened to my video or something, was like, no, I'm going to go to him. And he wrecked him. And Dan Hooker's another one that like the media has been really weird because there's a lot of people saying like Dan Hooker's past it or whatever. I'm like, I think Dan Hooker is the same guy that he's always been. Like I remember his previous 145 run, and while the finishes didn't necessarily happen, this kind of scenario did with much lesser fighters. He's susceptible to fast hands. His defense has always been a little bit suspect and reliant on his chin. And I think 145 is a terrible, terrible place for him to be. I think 155 is better.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who gambles a lot on boxing and MMA, and sometimes he hits me up because of my more technical insight to the game. And he said the one fight I'm struggling on is Arnold Allen versus Dan Hooker. I know I've got my bets placed with everyone else. I don't know what to do about this one. I kind of think Hooker, and I said, well, here's my thing. Hooker's a lot bigger than him, and he's a very prolific striker, training with Adesanya and everyone like that, and Volkanovski. But it's not that he's bad, and it's not that he's chinny, it's not that he's anything. He has a tendency, when you put him on the back foot with the threat of either wrestling or like big shots, he loses that footwork thing that he's got going, and he just turns into this. Goes backwards and trying to covers up like, oh, please don't hit me with a big one. Did it against Chandler, and he did it in this fight as well. So I said to my friend on Instagram DMs, I said, Arnold Allen needs to threaten with a takedown, and once he does that and makes Dan Hooker think he's going to shoot for his legs, then he'll come over and he might finish it in the second round. I did not expect them to turn it into a bar fight within 20 seconds of the round starting. That was wild. Arnold Allen getting rocked as well. Like again, I'm doing this like, Hooker's going to get knocked out. Oh, now Allen's hurt. Oh, now Hooker's hurt again. Brilliant. It reminded me a lot of Andre Arlovski versus Travis Brown. It had that kind of feel to it. You know, that just one round carnage, mostly going one way, but then one guy has a bit of a moment, and it starts. It reminded very reminiscent of Arlovski versus Brown, and fucking loved every second of it.
Absolutely, it was a great fight. Never been happier to be proven wrong on a fight. To be honest.
Arnold Allen is very, 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 very good. Very good, but he don't talk enough. He don't talk enough. So, 9 fights now, and he's still not even being talked about the title.
Yeah.
He deserves it.
And this is another one that shifted my perception very slightly on Arnold Allen. Molly McCann was much more of a dramatic shift. So was Jack Shore even, and Elise Reed, but it did shift it because like. Arnold Allen did something I didn't think he would do, and that he hadn't shown an ability to do, and he fought ever so slightly against type. He was the proactive striker, and I like that.
Yep. Which is what he was against Sadiq Youssef as well, because I'm actually, or at least I was, very high on Sadiq Youssef, and
I still am high on Sadiq Youssef.
Yeah.
I just he needs to go to a different camp. Ignoring the moral implications of a Lloyd Irvin camp. Lloyd Irvin fighters have always had a very, very hard ceiling. He finds good athletes. He teaches them some solid fundamentals, solid basics, solid well-roundedness. And then once they get into the deeper end of the pool, it goes downhill. And even the Arnold Allen fight and even the Alex Caceres fight at points kind of showed that with Sadiq Youssef. So I just think he needs to go to a different job.
Yeah, potentially. But the fact that I thought Sadiq Youssef was going to be the striker in that fight, that was a delivery, by the way, that I did not order. The fact that I thought Sadiq Youssef was going to be predominantly the striker and Arnold Allen was going to push the grappling a little more. And then in at least 2 of the 3 rounds, Arnold Allen knocked him down. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, featherweight's in trouble here. And yeah, I think he'll get there before Lerone will in terms of title shot, but don't be surprised if you get an all-British title fight at some point at featherweight, because I still think Volkanovski's there to be taken at featherweight just because of the height differentials. But then again, like
fair enough.
last 2 or 3 fights have been against, 2 against Holloway and then 1 against Ortega, and they're both very, very tall for the weight class. So I'm still on that horse a little bit. Like, I think he's a bit too short to have a massive longevity as a champion. Same thing that I thought about Frankie Edgar at lightweight. So I think Arnold Allen could do it. I don't know if I'd pick him right now.
I would still pick Volkanovski, but there's definitely something there with the height differential and the consistency at which Arnold Allen will attack him.
Yeah.
Because
plus his training regimen, dude. He is from a family of athletes, Arnold Allen. I have never seen, I wouldn't say never, but it's very rare that you see a guy as dedicated to the strength and conditioning aspect that Arnold Allen is. Like, his whole family are into strength and conditioning, and I've got a deep knowledge into it. And me being a coach as well as a fighter, I can appreciate that. And I can tell you, he gets everything spot on. So the fact that he did do that rush and didn't get tired and managed to do another rush even after getting rocked, I was like, oh, okay, that's where the strength and conditioning comes into play. And I see it. I see him being a contender. I don't know about a champion, but I see him being a contender. And really, he deserves it more than Korean Zombie, in my opinion.
Yeah, Zombie, it's name value. They're still trying to figure out if I think they want to throw anything behind Volkanovski or not. They want to see, like, okay, what happens when Max Holloway isn't here? Do you draw? And they're giving him somebody to be a reasonable B-side, and that's the Zombie. That's the unfortunate nature of the game. Is it's not all about fighting skill. It's about how you can make fans see you, and that's forever going to be a problem. Also, Arnold Allen training with TriStar, I think, is a good idea, because I'm not a big believer in TriStar. I actually never have been. I think that you have to have a very specific mindset for TriStar to work for you. You have to be not GSP, but elements of GSP. And I think Arnold Allen is
Rory McDonald as well. Rory McDonald was a TriStar guy, right?
I think Arnold Allen does have the perfectness to. So my thought on TriStar is Farasabi is a little bit too anti-aggression in fighting to a certain degree. And you have to have a fighter who will take the technical insights and the deep thinking of TriStar, but remember that this is also a fight. And I think Arnold Allen has that perfectly done.
Well, he even said on the post-fight interview, he said, like, was that the game plan? And he was like, absolutely not. My coach is going to kill me. So.
And then we had the main event, Tom Aspinall versus Alexander Volkov. And this is another fight that really shifted my perception. I was high on Aspinall, but obviously I picked Volkov because it was one of those things where, like, I have never seen Volkov get beaten by a fighter like Aspinall. I have to see it before I accept it. I've seen it. I accept it. But the way he cut through him, that's scary shit, because, I mean, Volkov made Curtis Blaydes work for every takedown he got.
Oh, yeah.
And Blaydes is undoubtedly the second best technical wrestler in the heavyweight division behind Stipe, in my opinion, with Cormier being retired. And the fact that Volkov gave him, again, he got them, but he had to work for them. And Aspinall didn't really have to work for them. Like, it did,
not really.
It came pretty easily, and he got the straight arm lock on the ground pretty easily. People are comparing him to the British Frank Mir, and I mean, stylistically, it's there. It's in the sense that we kind of question his cardio a little bit, because we did see him get tired against Arlovsky after a not particularly deep fight. The fact that he's never won a fight beyond the second round is a little concerning, obviously, when you're talking about title contention.
Yeah.
But the boxing looks tight. The wrestling looks better than I thought it was, and the grappling is top notch. Assuming the cardio is not the massive problem that some people think it is, and back in my head, it's there. Tom Aspinall is a very impressive fighter, and he called out Tai Tuivasa. I'd be down for that fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said something interesting in the prediction video when you said Alexander Volkov's doing this weird thing right now where because he's a 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guy, whatever he is, he's assuming that he can just gain weight in any fashion that he so chooses, and he thinks that's going to be effective in terms of being physically dominant. And back when you said that, it reminded me of what Fabricio Verdum did before the Junior Dos Santos fight, where he thought, well, I'm a heavyweight, I'm 6'4", 6'5". If I gain 10 pounds or 20 pounds here and there, it don't matter, I'm a heavyweight. If anything, it gives me an advantage. But not everyone's doing it the way John Jones is doing it, where he knows that he's 6'4", 6'5", and he should probably, if he's going to bulk up, he needs to do it properly and understand how to make his fast twitch muscle fibers work. And this is exactly the same reason why Israel Adesanya got dominated by Jan Blachowicz. The pound for pound rankings didn't change after that fight, and logically you'd think they would because Jan Blachowicz did dominate him, but he didn't bulk up the right way. He weighed in at like 202 or something mad like that. So, anyway. So
yeah, well, that I didn't even understand that because like, oh, we're going up to light heavyweight. I'm going to weight at 202. Why? If you're going to bulk up.
Or just 200. Might have even been as light as 200. I can't remember. But the Doom did the same thing. He fell victim to the same thing. He was always like a tall, slightly lankier grappler guy who eventually, after training with guys like Bahar Zada in Holland and that, he got his striking to match his grappling eventually. But like again, same thing. Junior Dos Santos came in like light on his toes, 220, 230 pounds. Verdun came in 240, 250, and Joe Rogan goes, yeah, but that's not a healthy 240, 250. He just looks fatter than before. And of course, what happens? Like Dos Santos blasted him. So when you said that, I went, oh, and I started having flashbacks and thinking, yeah, I don't remember Alexander Volkov being like that in Bellator. He was tall and skinny.
He was around like 240 in Bellator.
Yeah. And now he's having to cut weight to get to heavyweight. That's not good. Unless you're someone who's physically built like Brock Lesnar.
I don't think he cut weight this time because he weighed in. Hang on,
I thought he was at
253.
He was
253.
Oh, so not that big.
So it looks like Volkov has abandoned his bulk up plan.
I hope so.
And he's coming back down.
It's not,
but he's still heavy. He's still heavy.
Like if you look at the Derrick Lewis fight, which I suppose is the most notable fight, that was a big fight. That was my balls was hot fight. He was wrecking Derrick Lewis's life for 2.5 rounds until the equalizer came in, which is Derrick Lewis's punches. So and like you said, he made Cyril Gahn work for 5 rounds. He made who else? You just said someone else's name before. Curtis Blades, made that fight very difficult. And like a hot knife through butter. Tom Aspinall just came in Manchester style and just went, no, mate. Just drove in and just did what he wanted to him. He did a few interesting things on the feet, Volkov, like the double left kick was interesting. He did a little bit of like the Dustin Poirier thing, like lifting his elbow to block instead of his entire arm. That was interesting. There were some things there that could have worked, and he seemed to have a good game plan for Tom. But he is, again, it looks like, and I wasn't sure at first, it looks like he is going to be every bit as good as some people now think he's going to be. But does he get by a guy like Gahn or Ngannou or John Jones or Stipe? That's where you start questioning, what now? But Tuivasa, he can probably do the same thing. If he wants to stand and trade with Tuivasa, he probably can. It just wouldn't be recommended because it's more even that way. But I think if he takes Tuivasa down, it'll end exactly like that, straight arm lock from half guard or something. But the big four, I'm going to call them the big four, being Gahn, Ngannou, Jones, and Miocic. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think I pick him against either of those, but I think they at the beginning of the broadcast they put up all of these British fighters who will be the first one to fight for a belt, and I said Aspinall because
I saw that. Yeah, there was 6 of them. I remember.
Yeah, because
they posted that, and I replied with 3 guys who are not even on it. I said Lerone Murphy, might be biased, but I have seen how good he is. Mohamed Makayev, because he's got a British passport now, so that counts. And also another flyweight addition, Jake Hadley. I think he's got a lot of potential to get to that. As long as he can nail the weight cut, he has the potential to get there.
I was really disappointed that the Jake Hadley fight against Alan Nascimento got pulled off the card. I thought that was going to be very good. And obviously, the Nathaniel Wood being pulled off the card also was not great. Although, I wasn't exactly hyped for the 2 fights they had him booked for. I just thought they were both...
No, he definitely would have beat the first guy.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the fight card. Like I said, it was for a fight night. It changed my perception on a lot of fighters. We also had 9 bonuses. 9. 450K. Paid
I
out.
think the last time that happened was UFC 100. So I mean, yeah, because I think everyone at UFC 100 got rewarded somehow. I can't remember, but yeah, big,
which
big
is good. Good payday for the fighters, and yeah.
And a good look for the Brits. A good look for the Brits.
Indeed. Let's see. How'd the Brits do? 1, 2.
I think only 3 lost. 7-1 and 3 lost. I think
3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 5-3, 6-3, 7-3. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, 7-3.
So the only ones that lost were Corey McKenna, Mike Grundy, and Jai Herbert.
Yeah. So good luck in general. I mean, it's a good showing, and Dana did say something I agree with, because we didn't give these guys people we just know they could beat, and the main point. I mean, the only person we really did that for was maybe Paddy and Gunnar, but Gunnar's Irish Icelandic, so it doesn't even count.
Yeah, Gunnar was the super easy fight for the the air quote British contingent. And like the Pimblett fight, I don't think that there is such a thing as a safe fight for Pimblett, just because of how bad his defense is and how cold he starts. Like I feel like almost anyone in the division knocking him out, anyone knocking him out in the first minute would not actually surprise me. It just
especially if he starts facing taller guys. Right, recently he's had a big height and reach advantage over these 2 fighters he's been fighting, but the minute he starts fighting these, even if he fights like a cowboy, and I don't mean cowboy now, maybe in a cowboy like 5-6 years ago, like that'd be a bad stylistic matchup for him, dude, because he can do everything he can do, but better. Yeah. So maybe give him someone like Cowboy next. That might be a good. Or is Cowboy still at welterweight? I've forgotten.
I mean, the Cowboy fight wouldn't be a bad idea. It's a hell of a name. I heard Jim Miller was an idea that people put forth.
Again, stylistically, no, because he's so much bigger than him. Jim Miller wasn't even a big lightweight in the early days. Never mind now.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends on what you're wanting, and I think the UFC does want Pimblett to win. He's their new. I struggled to think of another way to put it other than Conor McGregor. Not saying that they're the same.
Well, I mean, dude, Barstool Sports put $1 million into his contract, so I mean, that's just a bit of a hedge in the bets there.
Yeah, so Pimblett is going to get pushed. He's going to get a winnable fight. Again, I don't want to say gimme because with how bad his defense is, there is no such thing as a gimme. But but he's going to get someone that that either is going to want to grapple with him and therefore put him in his strongest aspect, or who is going to be outsized by him, or both. And that's Jim Miller kind of fits that bill pretty perfectly. And Miller's still got a name. Like, it still means something to beat Jim Miller. Even now somehow.
That I can agree with you with. I can agree with you on that, sir. That's a good point to end on. I got to bounce. It's been a fucking pleasure.
All right, you can throw out your Twitter and stuff. Not that I have much of an audience here, but it's up with the social
Robbie
media.
Scott. It's Robbie Scott Kuwait on all platforms. Robbie Scott, and then the letters Q and the number 8 on all platforms. Find me wherever you see fit.
There we go. So thanks to Rob for taking some time. We get a deeper access.
Thanks for having me.
A deeper view into someone who went further down the MMA rabbit hole as a fighter than I did, and we had someone who didn't go down the rabbit hole at all in Byron in the prediction video. So we got both ends of the spectrum.
Just what you need.